My wife cheated on me with my best friend, and I just found out she forged my signature to sell our family home for $350, $0. Now we're fighting in court over the money and the betrayal. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Lisa, cheated on me with my best friend, Mark. Honestly, it feels like some bad movie. The thing is, I caught her red-handed, but the real shocker was what I found out afterward. She forged my signature to sell our family home for $350, $0. Yeah, she sold the house I built with my own hands, the house where we raised our kids, and she did it behind my back. That's the kind of betrayal that hits you like a freight train. It started about 6 months ago. Things weren't perfect, but I thought we were just going through a rough patch. Lisa had been acting weird, distracted, secretive, always on her phone. She'd brush off my questions with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. At first, I chalked it up to stress at work or her trying to plan some surprise. But then I noticed her phone would ring at odd hours, and she'd hide it quickly when I entered the room. Small stuff maybe, but enough to make me suspicious. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but my gut was telling me something was off. One night I decided to check her phone when she went to bed early. I know, invasion of privacy, but I was desperate. I found messages, flirty, suggestive texts to someone named Mark. The tone wasn't just friendly, it was intimate. I saw pictures she'd sent him, some of her in lingerie, some of her in our bed. My stomach dropped. I kept scrolling and saw that they'd met up more than once, always with excuses about work or just catching up. That was the first real sign that Lisa was cheating, but the biggest shock was still coming. A week after I found those messages, I started noticing strange things around the house. My clothes were missing, or I'd find them in her closet, folded differently. My wallet was lighter. She'd been taking money out, I realized later, probably to fund her secret meetings. Then I noticed our bank statements had some suspicious transactions. One of them was a large deposit, 350, marked as the sale of our house. I didn't know she'd even put it up for sale, let alone gone through with it. That's when I decided to dig deeper. I went to the courthouse, looked up property records, and sure enough, she had forged my signature and sold the house without telling me. The contract was signed with my name, but I never authorized it. I was furious, confused. How could she do this? How could she betray everything we built? It was like I'd been punched in the stomach. I confronted her the next day, and that's when the real fireworks started. When I confronted Lisa about the house, her reaction was nothing like I expected. She looked me dead in the eyes, her face a perfect mask of innocence, and she said, "Oh, you're overreacting. I just signed some papers for the bank. It's no big deal. You're making a mountain out of a molehill." That bitch had the nerve to lie right to my face, even after I showed her the bank statements, the property records, and the forged signature. She kept insisting she was doing it for us, that she wanted to get us out of debt or buy a new house, something about a fresh start, but I knew better. I was furious. How could she just lie so blatantly? I felt my blood boiling. I told her I knew about the affair, about her messages with Mark, and the fact that she'd lied to me about everything. Her face froze, then she sneered and said, "You're overreacting. Mark is just a friend. You're paranoid. You always think the worst." That's when I saw her true colors, bitchy, manipulative, and utterly selfish. She tried to gaslight me, make me doubt my own instincts, but I wasn't buying it. The more I pressed her, the more her lies fell apart. She spun stories about how Mark was just a buddy who helped her with some work stuff, how I was imagining things, how I was just jealous or insecure. But I knew the truth. I saw the texts, the photos, the secret meetings. The betrayal wasn't just about the house. It was about the fact that she'd been lying to me for months. I felt betrayed on every level, my trust, my love, my sense of security. This wasn't just a fling, it was a full-blown affair. And she'd been hiding it from me right under my nose. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. For years, I worked my ass off to give her a good life, to build a family, and this is how she repaid me. With lies, betrayal, and now this, selling the house we loved without telling me. It felt like my entire world was crumbling. I sat there, staring at her, trying to process what I just learned. The anger was boiling over, but underneath that, there was this deep, aching sadness. How did everything go so wrong? How did I end up here, betrayed by the woman I loved, betrayed by my best friend? It was like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. In the days that followed, I didn't know what to do. I felt numb, then furious, then hopeless. I kept replaying every moment, every sign I missed, every lie she told. I started thinking about the money. The house was worth a fortune, and she just sold it like it was nothing. All that equity, our savings, gone. I couldn't even look at her the same way anymore. The trust was shattered, and I knew I had to figure out my next move. But honestly, I wasn't sure if I could forgive her or if I even wanted to. This was the kind of betrayal that changes a man forever. After that confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. My mind kept circling back to the money, the house, her lies. I started digging into everything I could find: bank statements, emails, texts. I wanted to understand just how deep the rabbit hole went. It turned out she'd been planning this for months. She talked about wanting a better life, a fresh start, but I now saw it was just her escaping with my money and my best friend. The worst part was realizing she'd forged my signature on the sale documents. I went to the lawyer's office, demanded to see the paperwork. The signature was a perfect forgery. She'd practiced it, I guess, or maybe just guessed. Either way, it was a clear violation of trust, and legally it was a crime. I felt sick. I had trusted her with everything, and she'd used that trust to steal from me and betray me with Mark. I had to do something. I couldn't just let her get away with it. I decided to get a lawyer. I needed to protect what was left of my assets. I also wanted to confront Mark, but I knew that wouldn't be easy. Mark was my best friend, and I never imagined he'd do this to me. The thought of him sleeping with my wife while I was at work, while I was building a future for us, it cut deep. I felt a mix of anger, heartbreak, and pure betrayal. How could someone I trusted so much turn around and stab me in the back like this? Meanwhile, Lisa was still acting like she was the victim. She kept lying, saying she did everything for us, that she wanted a better life, that I was just being paranoid. She threw in some tears, some fake apologies, but I saw through it. She was a master manipulator. I knew I couldn't just forgive her, not after what I found out. The house was gone, the money was gone, and my best friend was probably gone too, at least from my life. I started planning my revenge, but not in some petty way. I wanted her to feel the pain of what she'd done. I knew I had to play this smart. I couldn't just storm into court and demand everything back. She'd lie her way out of it. I needed proof, solid evidence. I hired a private investigator to dig into her dealings, to find any other secrets she was hiding. I also reached out to the bank and the courthouse to verify everything. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that she'd been planning this for a long time. It was a wake-up call. I realized I'd been naive, trusting her blindly. But now I was no longer that naive guy. I was angry, hurt, but also determined. She had betrayed me in the worst way possible, and I was going to make sure she paid. I didn't know what the future held, but I did know one thing: I couldn't stay in this mess. I had to get out, rebuild, and maybe someday find some peace. But right now, I was just trying to breathe through the storm she created. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how deep her deception went. It was like peeling an onion. Every layer revealed a new lie, a new betrayal. The private investigator I hired found out she'd been meeting Mark at a hotel, sometimes multiple times a week, always late at night. They'd been planning the sale of the house for months, even before I suspected anything. She'd forged documents, manipulated the legal process, and even tried to cover her tracks when I started asking questions. I went to the bank and got copies of all the transactions. The large deposit from the sale was wired straight into her account, then quickly transferred into some offshore account. She'd been careful, but not careful enough. I also discovered she'd been draining our savings little by little, racking up credit card debt, taking cash out secretly, all while pretending to be the perfect wife, the caring mother. It was infuriating. I remember sitting there, staring at the evidence, feeling like I was losing my mind. How could she do this? How could she lie so convincingly? I'd always thought I knew her, but now I saw her for what she truly was: a manipulative, selfish bitch who only cared about herself. I felt rage boil inside me, but I also felt an overwhelming sense of sadness. I'd built a life with her. We had 2 kids, house, a future, And she just threw it all away for some affair for money for Mark. I knew I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to act. I filed for an emergency court hearing to freeze her accounts, to stop her from moving any more money. I also started preparing to sue her for fraud, for forging my signature, for selling our house without my consent. I wanted her to pay, not just financially but emotionally. She needed to understand the damage she'd done. Meanwhile, I kept replaying everything. The good times, the bad times, the moments I thought were normal but were actually just her manipulations. It hurt badly. I felt betrayed, abandoned, and angry enough to explode. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. How did I miss all the signs? How did I not see that the woman I loved was capable of this level of deception? Every time I thought about what she'd done, I felt a deep sense of loss, but also a flicker of resolve. I wasn't going to let her destroy me completely. I had to fight back for myself, for my kids, for whatever shred of dignity I had left. The court hearing was one of the most intense moments of my life. I walked into that courtroom knowing I had the evidence to prove her fraud, her betrayal, everything. Lisa was there trying to look innocent, but I saw right through her. Her bitchy smirk, the way she tried to act like she was the victim, it made me sick. The judge listened carefully as I laid out all the proof: forged signatures, manipulated documents, the offshore bank accounts, the secret meetings with Mark. Lisa's lawyer tried to spin it, claiming she was just trying to protect the family, that she had made mistakes but her intentions were good. But I shot that down. I told the judge that she had lied to me from the start, that she'd stolen our house, our money, and my trust. I told the court how she'd been cheating on me with Mark, how she'd sold the house behind my back, and how she'd been draining our savings. I could feel my voice shaking, but I kept going. I knew I had to be strong for myself and for my kids. The judge took a long time to deliberate. When the ruling finally came down, it was like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. The court ordered her to return the money from the sale, to freeze her accounts, and to pay damages for the fraud. It wasn't just about the money anymore, it was about justice. I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I had fought for what was right, but the damage was done. My wife was a liar, a cheat, and a thief. My best friend was a traitor. After the court, I sat outside trying to process everything. I watched her walk out, the smug look gone now, replaced with a defeated expression. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her how much she'd hurt me, but I just walked away. I knew this wasn't the end, not yet. I had to figure out what to do next, whether to fight for custody of the kids, how to rebuild my life, and how to move past this betrayal. The hardest part was realizing that I'd lost more than just money. I'd lost my sense of security, my trust in everyone I cared about. I kept asking myself how I could have been so blind, so trusting. But I also knew I couldn't stay stuck in that place. I had to move on for myself and for my kids. I told myself I'd learn from this, that I'd become stronger because of it. I'd rebuild, even if it meant starting over from nothing. Now I'm still figuring out how to put the pieces together. The house is gone, the money is gone, and I'm left with a shattered sense of what I thought was real. But I also know one thing: betrayal like this doesn't define me. I'm still here, still standing. And someday I hope I can find some peace, even if it takes a long time. Looking back, I realize this whole nightmare has changed me forever. I used to think trust was the foundation of any relationship, but now I see it's fragile, something you can lose in an instant if you're not careful. Lisa's betrayal shattered that illusion. She thought she could get away with everything: lying, cheating, stealing, and I'd just stand there clueless. But I learned the hard way that honesty and loyalty are everything. Without them, you're just a shell of a person, vulnerable and lost. I also learned that revenge isn't about petty payback. It's about justice, about making sure the people who hurt you understand the consequences of their actions. I fought to expose her lies, to reclaim what was mine, and to hold her accountable. It wasn't easy. I had to dig deep, face my pain, and keep fighting even when I wanted to give up. But in the end, standing up for myself was the only way to start healing. Now I'm slowly rebuilding my life. I've moved out of the house, started therapy, and focused on my kids. They're the only reason I keep going. I want them to see that even after betrayal, you can pick yourself up and keep fighting. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I'll never let anyone betray me like that again. Trust is earned, not given blindly. And if someone shows their true colors early, I'll walk away before they can hurt me. To anyone reading this who's going through something similar, know that betrayal cuts deep, but it doesn't have to destroy you. Take control of your life. Fight for what's right. Don't let the lies define you. And most importantly, learn to trust yourself again. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who has to live with your decisions. Make sure they're choices you can be proud of. I may have lost a lot, but I gained clarity. And that's worth more than any house or money in the bank.